it's not rocket science that these elections have come. FCT area council elections, 62 positions on offer. The data and everything is out. Then those 4 state assembly seats, 2 in Rivers, 2 in Kano. I don't want to go into the victors and those ones who didn't win, who are not victors. But my area of concern is what we have looked at, voter apathy. Popped out briefly on Saturday. Some of you were in the office coordinating the AIT and Ray Powers coverage of all these elections. And I saw the apathy, very glaring apathy, lack of interest. People are not concerned, and the figure is very interesting. The Abuja Municipal Area Council, which is our here, so to say, the election, both the 12 councillorship seats, the 12 wards, and the sole chairmanship. What's the percentage? Just slightly over 8%
of
the registered voters.
So we are
in
seeing
AMAC.
Okay, in AMAC.
Yes. Okay. Some others in Kuje rose up to about 15%.
Okay.
In Gwagwalada, I think 13%.
So it's more worrisome within the elites.
Yeah.
Because the elites stay in AMAC.
Yeah, basically, most of the people who live in AMAC are a bit higher, economically, socially, to the other area councils. So the apathy was there. Asokoro, like about 12 polling units, one here, the other one there, the villa. People did not come out. They didn't see it as a big deal because when the big one comes, normally we know what we see. More people come out for the bigger elections. But probably the Nigerian people, rather the FCT residents, should have used this as an opportunity to give its scorecard to the landlord of FCT. Talking about President Bola Tinubu, whether they support his policies, whether they are happy those policies will yield fruit, or whether they think, look, the suffering is too much. But what normally happens is that when people are dissatisfied, at times, instead of going to protest with their voter's card and their thumb, they stay away. So who is the loser? Those who have pitched their tent somewhere now. I won't begrudge anybody who leaves a party that brought him to power, like Bala Zaka, who has said, look, I think I need to find solace in APC, and he moved to APC. He's back now for a second term. What we need to do as a country is how workable would it be? In some countries, even in this Africa, voting is compulsory. If you do not vote, it's, I can't remember whether it's a criminal offense or a civil. One of the two, you will pay huge fines. They will deduct it from your salary. You might even go to jail. I think it's 3 months. I can't put my fingers on the country, but I think about 4.
Norway is one of them.
No, we're talking about the African continent. In Europe, France is compulsory to vote. So that's something we should be looking at.
So you don't think there are other avenues you can use rather than wielding the big stick, because the Constitution clearly makes it a civic duty, and if you want to use law, it may run contrary to the Constitution.
That's what I'm saying. So if we need to get people to come out, we need to encourage them that, look, if you don't vote, either you will lose benefits, maybe if you access help. There are many ways they can use.
Okay.
So let me land on this point, Dr.
Quickly.
So I think strongly that what Nigerians are facing is a key factor to why they will just say, I beg, leave me, Jerry. I'd rather stay in my house than go to vote for some people who they refuse in front of my street.
The thing is that when people, I see young people tell me, I'm not going to vote again. And I say, are you threatening me? If you vote, are you doing me a favor? Who are you doing a favor? Refuse voting. You're doing a favor to yourself. Yes, I understand there are responsibilities, and Adeba Bodori outlined them. You mobilize people, you encourage them. When the encouragement don't come, except few that are self-encouraged and self-motivated, the bulk will stay behind. But I plead to them. We didn't see the political parties do house to house. Gone are the days when you just put jingles on the social media or TV station, do rallies. Jonathan called it neighbor to neighbor. And you need to get to the grassroots, knock at people's doors. They still do it in US. They knock at homes, doors to homes, reach them, send the message to them. But political parties appear not to be conversant with these responsibilities. But in the final analysis, it is you who sits back that loses, because you complain more, you lament more, and you are the victim. And I continue to assure you, you'll be the victim. You are the first victim of bad governance. Abulu.
Good morning. Happy New Week to all my colleagues and dear listener and viewer. I want to really commend the Electoral Commission, Independent Electoral Commission, for this FCT election, council elections. Well, we didn't hear much of violence, but we know we heard some ballot box snatching in some areas like Kuje and what have you, and the delay in arrival of election materials in Amak municipal area. But by and large, I think it was fair. I will commend INEC for this progress, semi-progress. I know some people will not like my reaction to that. But on the issue of voter apathy, I want to say that a lot of people have their polling units in their states. When it comes to general election, most people travel. Abuja is empty. And those people that didn't come out, most of them.
When you say most, it means majority. Would that be right? Is the minority that travel?
Now, Abuja is a youth center of unity.
Yes.
Center of unity, and it's growing by the day, leaps and bounds. But don't forget, you have the indigenous people who feel that grassroots election is theirs, and they hold it close to their heart. The people in Buari, Kuje, I know there are other Nigerians that live in those areas, but there are traditional people, indigenous people, that feel that it is their own right, it is their own, what do you call it now, their own duty to be leaders of their own people. Because they feel
that they have the highest stake.
The highest stake. They feel that the FCT minister is in charge of the whole of Abuja. The president is also here. So their own is, they do feeder roads to communities, they do feeder roads.
So voter turnout among the indigenes or original inhabitants is larger because of the stake they see.
They have. And you have political parties that have fielded people that are not originally from the FCT. And you know what happened to them. They didn't get much votes. But the indigenous people of Abuja who are fielded in some of these parties, APC for example, and even the guy in Gwagwalada that won under PDP is an indigene. So they won. But I'm not saying that
but non-indigens have won. For example, non-indigens have won in the past. Is it not down to mobilization? Now, if a party fields a candidate of an original inhabitant and they go to mobilize the original inhabitants and they vote for the party. Now, if you, as a party, you field a someone that's not original inhabitant, did you go to mobilize non-original inhabitants to vote for him too?
And before TV comes, the mobilization is a very important aspect of politics. And you rightly mentioned the neighbor to neighbor, the house to house. In communication, you have interpersonal communication. How far did they go with interpersonal communication? I stay along the airport road. I know that the ADC, led by former Labour Party president candidate and Rotimi Amici, were in the market around that axis. I saw the convoy they came with. They went house to house. Even in my estate, my chairman was telling me somebody brought a flyer for a certain political party that please, you people should come out and vote for us. That is neighbor to neighbor. That is house to house. But how far did it go? But you don't also exclude the media. You don't also exclude the traditional media to be precise, because there are traditional media in the FCT that speak Gwari, that speak indigenous language, and there are radio stations all around. Did you patronize them?
Okay. Tell me, Tiaf, what figure was it that won Kuje Area Council and Amak? Do you have it? Because it will help in our analysis. It will help to elucidate the points we are making. 8% showing up to vote in Abuja Municipal Area Council. It's just like the Lagos Island local government. In Lagos, all you need to do is to put legs on the ground, boots on ground, and they go to knock at people's door and extract commitment that they will vote. It's all about political strategy. When they say this guy is, this man is political, has political sagacity, because he knows how to reach the voters, apart from those that know how to manipulate, but reaching the voters. Now, that's what political parties will learn, that the voter is your client, is your customer. Customer is king. And you don't assume that you do one flyer or do one jingle or do one billboard, they will come to you. You need to establish that personal connection. That's something they need to learn going forward.
Amechi, good morning to you. Good morning, listener. What happened in the FCT and the results we have seen? are not completely different from what had happened in 2022, 2016, and all of that.
That's during the past area council
The past area council elections. They're not completely different, especially Gwagwalada, for instance. We've had APGA win in that place. We have NPP at the time win in that place when every other area council is going the other way. So it's nothing strange. But what I'm happy about is, unlike what we've had in previous election, violence in Kuje, Abaji, and all of that, we've not gotten such reports this time. Why are we discussing the FCT area council? Well, we don't discuss local government elections in Anambra, in Kano, and all of that. FCT is strategic in a way that it doesn't have a governor. So this is about the only election. After this, it must be presidential or National Assembly. And in the presidential election, on several repeated election cycles, we've seen the issue of FCT being taken to the election petitions tribunal on the account of the constituencies you must win in 2/3 of the state and FCT. That is the importance of FCT. You know, that's why political parties, the APC chairman, national chairman, some persons are saying, oh, this is a show of what will happen in 2027. But if you know the FCT and you also know the figures, if you look at the figures also, it points clearly that it may not completely be the narrative that a lot of people are pushing for. I'm more interested in even looking at the councillorship. You mentioned the figures. I've gotten that of Amak. Maybe we can draw up that of whether or not. In Amak, the chairmanship won with 40,294. The second runner up 12,109, and the third person got about 2,116. You know, and for INEC, the report INEC is saying that there is even improvement in the voter turnout. That in 2022 it was about 8.7%, but in this election it was about approximately 10%. So which means there's an improvement from what had happened in 2022. There are several reasons, but definitely when you look at the national elections and what we saw at the local government, it may be different. Like I said, I'm interested in the councillorship seats, about 62 of them. APC won in 45, which means the other ones went to other political parties. And to me, that is significant. That is where elections are. That is where the grassroots, that is the lowest political unit, the council ward and all of that. And it speaks volumes. So if I say you want chairmanship here and there, but look at the councillorship seats and see what it is. And that's why I've always been mentioned it here also, that especially opposition parties should look at seats in the legislative house. Try and make sure that out of 10 council wards in a local government, you win 5 or 6. It puts you in contention. You can decide what happens in that,
So it's not all about targeting
the executive. In the House of Assembly, you reduce the number so that the ruling party does not have 2/3 majority in the House, do not have overwhelming majority that they can do whatever they want to do.
You know that these councillors that didn't get to APC.
No, eventually, a number of them will defer.
Most of them will jump over.
A number of them will defer, but it speaks volumes, on the politics, at that level. So it's a narrative of what it is. If you look at the history of FCT, indigene, non-indigene, and all of that, over time, FCT has proven itself to be the center of unity. And we've had senators elected here who are not original inhabitants in the way and manner we are discussing. We've had House of Rep. In fact, the current House of Rep member for Amak Buhari Federal Constituency is not an original inhabitant in the way and manner.
Same with the Senate.
Even the Senate, and all. And it has repeated over time. And the dynamics and the issues also change. As we were talking about people coming out, low voter, there are things that drive people. I personally was expecting that this issue of tenement rate, especially in Namak, would have driven people out to say, okay, no, this is a time for us to do something different. These touts that we have on the roads, we're discussing them, the other harassing people who are driving vehicles and all. You
will not vote, only for you to complain
to sit down
the tenement rates are high. I had an opportunity to have a say. You were chilling at home.
But those issues will eventually, I want to believe that as we move, INEC said we had 8.7, now we have 10%. So I'm sure that eventually, and one majority, INEC also acknowledged that, and which is wrong, that they splitted polling units.
We have to go for a break.
You told me that they splitted polling units that had 1,250. 3 days to voting. And they claim that they pasted displayed voter
And they started sending SMS messages
you know,
to
and
people
all of that.
morning of that election.
It's wrong.
It's clear logistic nightmare. Failure of administrative process.
As if it was done intentionally to frustrate the process and
to suppress votes.
It's wrong. And we must tell INEC and call them. They must not repeat this nonsense in the general election. If you are moving people, move them ahead of time. I was a victim in the last elections. I relocated my this thing, where I relocated to vote on the day of election. When we went there, they said my name was not there. I had to go and start looking. So INEC must do the right thing.
And when you're relocated, you struggle to move from one part of where you are to your new place because of the restriction. But I have to go on a break now. When we come back, your mails and the executive order on revenue from petroleum industry. Stay with us.
Madam, wetin do am?
Since he drink that new medicine, he not just get himself again. He just dey very weak. They sweat anyhow.
Medicine, dey good for body, but sometimes e fit cause adverse drug reaction (ADR). Even vaccines wey dey protect life fit sometimes lead to wahala wey we dey call adverse event following immunization (AEFI). Anytime you see this kind thing, report am immediately to any healthcare practitioner or use your phone to report am yourself. For Nigeria, you fit report am to Road Safety App, download am for Google Play Store or use VG mobile link in yourself. You fit use the e-reporting with the NAFDAC website. Now, Africa Center for Disease Control and Saving Lives and Livelihoods join hand with Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare and other partners. They bring on this message.
Good morning, Nigerians. Many thanks for staying with us. Welcome to the Mail segment on Political Platform. My name is Fumilayo Emopai.
And I am Maricha Ojiti. The first mail coming from Ejiofor Isife, writing from Abuja, says, the area council election held in Abuja on the 21st day of February 2025 may be over, but its implications are far from settled. Conducted amid a visibly low voter turnout and widespread allegation of irregularities, the exercise has once again exposed the fragility of Nigeria's electoral integrity. The real issue is not simply whether manipulation occurred. The deeper and more alarming concern is the steady normalization of excessive political control concentrated in the hands of few actors who possess the capacity to shape outcomes long before citizens approach the ballot. When electoral competition becomes overshadowed by entrenched influence, democracy is reduced to ceremony rather than choice.
Okay, Emeka Mba from Abuja says, the much-awaited Federal Capital Territory Area Council elections have come and gone, lost and won, but permit me to air my key takeaways from the exercise. Please, the election shows that we and INEC have not learned anything from past elections and their mistakes are not ready for free, fair, credible, and acceptable elections. Yes, the election was generally peaceful, but there were avoidable issues with the beavers' equipment, late arrival of materials, voters having their polling units changed without notifications, vote buying, ballot box snatching, and worse still, unprecedented voter apathy, with only about 7% of registered voters participating in the exercise, which is caused mainly due to lack of confidence in the process. Secondly, with all the teething problems outlined above, the INEC chairman, Joash Amupeton, did not witness any of them, as he was on national TV telling whoever cared to listen that the elections were highly successful, with beavers accrediting in less than 5 seconds, and there was large turnout of voters. That doesn't sound like someone who can handle the larger general elections of Nigeria.
Laji Agbas, writing from Ida, local government area, says, for a week I have listened closely to the political analysis on Waypower 100.5 FM. The voices have been heavy with frustration, anger, and disappointment from opposition figures, analysts, and fellow listeners alike. The dominant narrative points to the greed and the insatiable appetite of politicians and powerful elites. Yet honesty compels us to trace the roots of our decline to the very beginning of our democratic journey. In 1999, when General Abdul Salami handed over power to OBJ of the PDP, Nigeria stood at a decisive crossroads. That moment presented a rare opportunity to rebuild institutions weakened by years of military rule, thereby strengthening the judiciary, entrenching accountability, and securing the nation's future. Instead, political consolidation overshadowed national transformation. Institutions were manipulated, dissent was intimidated, and anti-corruption efforts became instruments of political convenience. The ruling establishment prioritized the retention of power over the construction of a durable foundation for generations to come. May God Almighty restore our beloved Nigeria.
And Wada Yahaya from Durumi 1, Abuja says, the victory of Honorable Christopher Zaka in Amak is just the concluded local council polls in FCT did not come to me as a surprise, considering his track record of achievements and also being an original inhabitant of Abuja. But the only thing that surprised me was the extent of voter apathy recorded in the election. 837,338 registered voters in Amak, only 65,000 voters turned out for the accreditation as indicated by INEC official, less than 8% of the registered voters. I have consistently listened to the political platform. If there is one recurring topic that this respected platform has emphasized about election is the worrisome turnout always recorded in elections and the need for people to exercise their civic duties.
Finally, Manuel Kama, writing from Gowon Estate, Alimosho, Lagos, says, I crave your indulgence to observe that the U.S. military intervention in Nigeria should not restrict their military aid in Nigeria to training alone. This is because the terrorists and bandits are still operating as if nothing is happening with impunity. For example, pay us $1 million or we attack you, terrorist tells Kebbi community. Here's calling on the U.S. military in Nigeria not to limit their support in Nigeria to training alone. This is because the killings of innocent Nigerians by the armed bandits is still ongoing. What is the value of Nigerian citizens' life? Nigerian life matters and should be protected. Indeed, that is all we can take on the mails today. Keep sending your mails with your name and where you're writing from to politicalplatform@darkgroup.com.
Thank you so much for the mails. Now, the Petroleum Industry Act was signed into law some years ago. In that law, provisions were made as to the revenue from the petroleum industry, where it should go. For instance, it asks NNPC to retain 30% of its revenue, of its profit as management fund. The other one they call it Frontier Exploration Fund, use it to explore for crude oil in areas where we don't have crude oil and all that. The Upstream Regulatory Commission is also to use certain money to do certain things, as specified in that law. But the president issued an executive order last week saying, stop that, pay that into a federation account. The big question is, can an executive order override a law in Nigeria? From what I know, it's not possible. What the president should have done was to cause an amendment to the Petroleum Industry Act to reflect his wishes. Using an executive order to override a law amounts to dictatorship and presents a situation as if we are a monarchy and not a democracy.
For me, I think you hit the nail on the head. Is that no matter how fanciful an executive order is, once there's an existing law, what you can do is to seek for an amendment. I think the exercise of power in a manner that portends danger to democracy must be avoided at all costs.
I think it's not out of place for presidents to issue executive orders, but the way and manner this one is issued have there are a lot of lacuna in it. And if you are saying that certain monies should be moved to the federation account, so how will the Nigeria Upstream Regulatory Commission operate? How will it get its funds? Because you have automatically withdrawn from the PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act, and there's an executive order. So the executive order by presidents in a presidential system of government is not out of place. But how it's going to be implemented to ensure that those agencies that are affected on that line are not
starved of funds.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no provision expressly about stating executive order in the Nigerian Constitution, but it provides that the president can issue orders, and it's maybe bureaucracy. And we've borrowed the relief from the US and others that were talking about executive order. But Section 315 of the Constitution, 1999 as amended, gives the president the power to issue the executive order in which he did. The provision says, subject to the provisions of this constitution, an existing law shall have effect with such modifications as may be necessary to bring it into conformity with the provisions of this constitution and shall be deemed to be, an act. Once that modification is made, shall be deemed to be an act of the National Assembly to the extent to which that,
Can you read again?
Subject to the provisions of this constitution, an existing law shall have effect with such modifications as may be necessary to bring it into conformity with the provisions of this constitution and shall be deemed to be a listed, conditions, even not just the National Assembly, even the governor can issue such executive order to bring it into conformity with the constitution. And that's what the president said. He said the constitution says all revenue should be paid into the federation account. So if there is a law, just like the Petroleum Industry Act, which violates that provision, the president is issuing an executive order, to bring it into conformity. But not my concern, the issue, don't forget, these percentages we're talking about were part of the compromise by the northern lawmakers to agree to passage of the Petroleum Industry Act, Petroleum Industry be now an act. So what will be the future of such negotiations?
So a president has got a right to,
yes.
If he interprets the constitution and say a law is in contravention of this constitution, he stops the law. So you don't need to go to the court to challenge.
You
the
can challenge.
consistency.
If anybody wishes to challenge the executive order, you can. But the president has the powers to issue such modifications so that those provisions will conform with what the constitution says.
Will an amendment of the law will not have a better than executive order?
Well, executive orders have been challenged even in the US. What I know of the executive order is that you use it to enforce existing laws and not to override. Elsewhere, you can see where the constitution also says laws are laws. And we continue to interrogate it. We speak to lawyers and, of course, continue to give you a different perspective to this issue. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a good time.
It says section what?
315.
Let me read it.
Providing 360 degrees of information.